Hello, everybody. Welcome to our ResNexus webinar on how to thrive in the shoulder season. So, firstly, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself in case you don't know me. I am Vicky. I'm the owner of Tracks and Cream, which is a glamping site in Somerset. Um, I've been running our glamping site for the last 9 years, and I've over 16 years of hospitality experiencing, ranging from hotels to glamping. And I'm also the ResNexus UK ambassador. So ResNexus is top-rated property management software, and I use it to run my glamping site. And I absolutely love their innovative products and their customer service. As an ambassador, I partner with them to provide education and industry knowledge throughout the hospitality community. So let's get started about the shoulder season. So what is a shoulder season? So it's basically a transitional period between your peak and your off-peak seasons, typically falling in the autumn or the spring. The time of year is characterized by moderate demand and a wider range of available promotions and discounts offered by businesses to attract visitors and optimize revenue. So here's a general example of the slow and busy seasons that a lot of properties experience. The low season is pretty much the winter months. It's post holidays, everyone's tired, the weather's cold, school's back, everyone's back at work. And also, depending on your area, many times, like particularly glamping and camping properties, are probably closed. The shoulder seasons are between the low and the peak seasons, so it makes sense that the demand also lies somewhere in the middle. This is where you get lots of trips to see family and friends, and when the guests want to kind of beat the crowds, so they'll tend to go away in the shoulder season. Then, obviously, summer is the peak season. That's when the bulk of the travel occurs and all the holidays are planned. And it's when your property is typically at its busiest. And then things start winding down again into another shoulder season. So this might be like totally oversimplifying things, and it might not align with every business. Like ski resorts, for example, would see a much greater demand in winter, but this is typically what we're seeing in the UK. So if we look at a more specific, a more accurate example, this is what a glamping site might see over the course of a year if you're open all year round. One thing to pay attention to is there are times when the property might have little peaks in between seasons. So with that in mind, if we look at a cabin's, this is actual occupancy of a cabin that uses ResNexus. So this is their data for a complete year. So as you can see, it follows our more detailed model pretty closely, though that won't always be the case. So let's take a look and see if we can figure out what's going on here. At first glance, it appears this property has a little bump in December. Um, that means they must get a fair amount of business for Christmas, much better than November anyway. So, in fact, the data shows that they were pretty practically full from the 25th to the 31st. Um, but then the rest of December was pretty slow, which gave them the 49% occupancy. And they also got a little bump for New Year's as well. Another spike occurs in February, so that looks like Valentine's Day pulling some weight there. Then from March onwards, we're in the low season, but steadily rising as the weather gets warmer until we hit May and June. Now we're in the shoulder season. So where it's not the busiest, it'll get, but we know it's coming at the end of June. July and August are our major months at the highest peaks, and then we're coming back down to shoulder and then again into low for winter. So we can take a little bit of a closer look at December to see what's happening. So what we find in December is that the months themselves have little peaks. So this could be hidden trends when you look a bit closer. So for the month's average, they were below 50% occupancy for the whole month. But as you can see, they alternated between slow days and spikes before all ramped up for the Christmas break. So it's no surprise that each of these big spikes land squarely on a weekend, while the weekdays don't get as much attention. This looks like a great opportunity to try out some different revenue management strategies for next December. So for that first weekend of December, maybe they would increase their weekday occupancy by offering a sliding rate discount, so like 15 to 25% if they book for 3 nights or more. That might push guests over the edge and increase occupancy on both the weekday and the weekend. For the second weekend, you since occupancy was fairly high, you might increase the weekend rate slightly and pair it with a 15 to 25% discount if they book 3 nights or more to increase the midweek occupancy. And then from the 19th to the 31st, it looks like they were around 80% occupied. So, which is a great season. And if that's consistently trend year on year, then it might be a good idea to increase the rates for that time period. Also, add some minimum night rules requiring at least a 3 night minimum. And since it's just before Christmas, you you might be able to increase the total revenue by throwing in some variable pricing, like offering hot chocolate as an add-on package. So here you can see they've offered both increase and discounted options depending on the trend for that month. So I recommend you do the same exercise for all the months that you can so you can find the peaks. For example, this property sees a peak in February, so that comes from Valentine's Day, similar to Christmas and New Year's. Even in November, which has the lowest occupancy, it still has spikes within it. And for the busy and the shoulder seasons, you look for the peaks within the peaks by studying your current year as the advanced bookings come in. You should also check how soon your season's filling up and evaluate how early you're implementing your discounting incentives. So, what ideas have we got to give our occupancy a boost in the shoulder season? I'm going to start with the love it or hate it social media. So, we need to get the cozy season messaging going. So, you need to showcase the appeal of the fires and the blankets and the hot tubs and the nature walks. So, this is really great, like great content ideas. And like some examples of some reels might be like reels of the autumn leaves or how your colours are changing at your property or your site. Think about getting some guest testimonials in of like some nice something that's given some examples of some nice cozy warming type feeling about it. And then maybe some of the behind the scenes of what it's like, if you're running a glamping site, what it's like behind the scenes, or if you've got a hotel or a B&B, what it's like in this season and what your trees are looking like. Because it's such a beautiful time of year, and we really need to showcase that. Some ideas for some kind of descriptions and hashtags. So hashtags aren't as important on things like Instagram anymore. Instagram aren't using hashtags. They're using the description that you put within the post, that big description. That's what you want to have all your keywords in it so that they can look and see. The algorithm looks at it and then feeds your content to the right audience. So you want to be getting words in like cozy getaway, autumn escape, off-season travel, like all those kind of descriptions. And so make your whatever graphic you put, make the description super super detailed. Then you can also think about getting some user-generated content. So encouraging your guests to share some of their snaps maybe from last year if you've got some repeat guests that don't mind sharing some of their cozy times around the campfire or the wood burner or in a hot tub. That really helps. You could also even run a competition to say, for the whole month of October, we're going to run this competition to say, share your photos, and then the best one gets a free night stay or something like that. And it's also a great opportunity to highlight what seasonal experiences are going on around in the local area. So you might have some local pick your own pumpkins or coming up to like the Christmas markets. Like we're not far from Bath, so you might want to tell people about coming to the Bath Christmas market. Um, then even on to, when you're thinking about a shoulder season next spring, you're thinking about the spring wildflowers. I mean, for us, we are on the Somerset level, so we get the starling murmurations come over. So we want to be telling people to come and stay to watch the starling murmurations. So there's always something exciting going on in your local area. So use the social media and the opportunity to share what other businesses are doing, and share what is on to ensure people want to come and stay with you. So now we need some complementary email marketing campaigns. So let's have a little think about what we could do. I mean, email marketing is so important. The average email open rate is around 20 to 30%. And we found that like the average return on investment is about £32 for every £1 spent on email marketing. And it makes sense because the price point for sending emails is incredibly low compared to other mediums. And even if the open rate is very low and the response rate is much lower, it's still bringing in additional business that you wouldn't otherwise have had. And you can improve your response rate by providing value in the form of special offers and promotions at strategic times. Because ResNexus makes it so easy to do your email marketing, it's not like you're having to copy and paste all your emails into a separate, like MailChimp or MailerLite. It's all within the system, and ResNexus is adding loads of templates now. So there's loads more exciting templates that you can use to do your email marketing. So it's well worth going and having a look at all the templates and just seeing what you can send out. So this is an email campaign that I've got going out tomorrow. So here's some different ideas of things that you can put in the emails. So I've got an offer, stay for 3 nights and get the fourth night free. So I'm wanting people to, this is specifically for half term, I'm wanting people to come for the whole week so I don't have to do any changeovers. Because I want to be able to spend time with the kids. So we've got special offers like that. So you know, stay 3 nights, get the fourth night free, stay 2 nights, get the third night free, whatever you want, cozy midweek discount escape, that kind of thing. So have a discount code as well, maybe. So you could do a midweek discount code that would just do like anytime they want to come and stay in the whole of midweeks for October and November, you're giving them a 10% or a 15% discount. So send that out in an email and make it a bit like you're a VIP, you're on our mailing list. Because of this, you get 15% off using this VIP code. So that's a really good way of doing a nice email campaign that's going to get people engaged. Then you can also offer some extra activities that are on for free. So what we're doing in October half term again is we've got autumn crafts in the craft hut. So those are going to be free for the guests. We're going to do on Thursday, we're going to do a Halloween silent disco to, you know, as like an incentive to get people to book. It's just a free event that we've got on. And then we've got that special offer as well. So I've done that all into one marketing email campaign, which is going to go out tomorrow and hopefully get people in for half term. So some other email campaign ideas. What I love about ResNexus is you can personalize the email, so you can put people into interest groups. So by segmenting the type of guest into like families, couples, solo travelers, maybe you want to do the over 50s market or the over 60s market, you can segment your guests into these interest groups. So we've got families interest group, we've got couples. We don't get so many couples, but they are there. So I can do a completely separate email campaign just for couples, talking about, you know, warm, cozy outdoor baths, wood burners, that kind of thing. And then we've got the families email that goes out, which is all telling you about half term and the silent disco and that sort of thing. So by segmenting these groups, it's definitely giving you more personalization to your emails, which guests really like. Then you want to get good at storytelling. So you want to write an email that paints a picture. Imagine a frosty morning with hot chocolate waiting and that kind of thing. Get that storytelling into your email campaign. And, you know, ChatGPT will write this stuff for you. Like you can use AI to get some ideas, and they will write you a story. You don't have to be a creative writer nowadays. You can get it to do it for you. You can use urgency and scarcity, especially with things like half term, which is just the 1 week, sometimes the 2 weeks, but generally the 1 week. Limited dates available, book by Friday to get this specific offer. So I don't tend to use that technique too much, but it is there if, you know, it is a valid marketing technique if you want to get those kind of scarcity going on. And then you want to also cross-sell and upsell. So try and get them to buy some hampers or spa packs or firewood bundles or, you know, s'mores kits or anything like that that's going to enhance the booking and make them think, oh, I'm getting a whole package here. So whether you want to get them to buy it separately or whether you want to include some of these things as part of your email campaign, you get a free campfire hamper or something like that. Just another incentive for people to book. So that's on email campaigns. But if you haven't already, now is a really good time to enable your cart abandonment emails. So this time of year, bookings may be more impulsive and people will be looking for more last minute deals. So if you've got cart abandonment set up, if somebody doesn't complete their booking but they put their email address in, then you can get the system to send out an email 15 minutes after they've not completed, just a same day reminder to say, oh, you sure you don't want to book? But then what's most valuable is that second email that goes out maybe a couple of days after that's got some additional incentive, like a 10% discount. I think I offer them a free bottle of Prosecco. Um, so have those additional incentives, and that will probably, at this time of year when people are more last minute and people are looking for deals, that will probably get them over the line. So you've got your email marketing campaigns going and you've got your social media, and that's going to drive traffic to your website, or it might make people search for you online, especially if they come from social media. So now's the time to think about your Google business profile and check that it's all up to date. Most guests will try to find your property online, so make sure you've got the basic business information available, like links to your website, phone number, and the reviews. The reviews are super important. So make sure that's all up to date. And now's the time, if you're going to maybe tweak some of your photos that are on your Google My Business profile to reflect the season. So get some of those nice autumn colours in, get some of the cozy vibes going. This is also where we can utilize those online travel agents to the best of our advantage by making sure that we've got as many connections as possible and Google Hotels connected. The OTAs are great at introducing your property to new guests. And in fact, in my opinion, it's one of the best ways to get found and get booked, especially by new guests. The OTAs give you increased visibility, and especially in the shoulder season, the quieter times. So now's the time to update your photos to make them seasonally appealing. Again, I'm talking about those cozy, relaxing kind of escapes. Get some photos on Airbnb and on booking.com and the different OTAs that reflect the season, like I was talking about with the Google My Business profile. And then also get those keywords and kind of searchability function in them as well, like pet friendly autumn getaway or romantic winter cabin. When you update your Airbnb, particularly Airbnb, Airbnb loves it when you update it. So by changing things and updating it and changing the photos a bit, it kind of refreshes it to Airbnb and puts it up a bit higher. So it's definitely worth having a little refresh for the season. I mean, in regards to search traffic, millions of people visit these sites every month. And one of the best things about the OTAs is that you only pay when they deliver results. So there's no real reason not to be listed on them, in my opinion. Because they do generate this billboard effect. We talked about this a lot I did a whole OTA webinar. We've got quite a back catalogue now of webinars that we've done on the ResNexus UK website. So it's just resnexus.uk. And there's the OTA website on there. There's a whole social media website on there. There's a tech you didn't know you needed webinar on there. Um, so do go back and have a look at those if you want to kind of refresh some of your OTA knowledge. So we've got some basic pricing tips when we're using the OTAs. So first of all, one of the best uses, especially if you're new to the OTAs, use them for social proof and reviews. So make sure you get some bookings through them. And if you are just setting up your listing and you're not really been on them before, but you're thinking now's the time in the shoulder season, then you can offer some new discounts. So if you're brand new onto Airbnb, for example, they'll do a discount. You can say the first three bookings are going to get 20% off. So they're really good for getting reviews and getting that social proof that people will look for. You want to kind of make sure that your book direct rate is lower. Um, so you can offset some of the commission fees by encouraging guests to book direct with a lower rate, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, you basically want to make sure that your book direct rate is lower than the OTAs. And you can do that through ResNexus by putting an uplift on the specific OTAs that you want to. You can use them to sell the weekdays and the slower season weekends, because a lot of the time you don't necessarily need help filling the weekends. So you can block those weekends out with the blackouts to encourage people to book direct, and then rely on them more for the midweeks. Like during your busy season, you might not need help getting found, so you just reduce the amount of inventory you show during your busy season. But ultimately, you want the guests to book direct, not through the OTA. So make sure your prices are lower on your website than on the OTAs. So I always like to use the driftwood in Alaska for the example, because you can see really clearly on here that all their OTA prices are much higher than their book direct price. So that if someone, a lot of people will search on the OTAs, they'll look on Google, they'll do a bit of research, and if they find that your price, book direct price is lower, then they're going to come to you and book direct, and they're not going to book through the OTAs. And it just means that the OTAs have a much harder time competing. So when we're thinking about pricing, we therefore could potentially think about yield management. And this I think really comes into its own during the shoulder season. So let's just talk a little bit about yield management. So supply and demand are tied to price. We know that. Low supply and low price means high demand. High supply and high price means low demand. So your quantity is the number of available units, and that doesn't change a whole lot unless you're making some additions or renovations or something. So the main lever that you've got to play with is price. So optimizing your pricing to make the most of supply and demand and hitting that sweet spot is called the economic equilibrium. So this is where you're maximizing revenue by selling the most units for the most money. At times, it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be 100% occupied. So now let's see what happens when the price is too high. The supply is higher than the demand. For a property, this looks like a lot of empty units. So you might be leaving money on the table because your occupancy is too low. So if we look at another scenario, when we price too low, then demand for the product increases and you'll soon run out of supply. In other words, you've left money on the table because the customers were willing to pay more. This results in 100% occupancy and you turning lots of people away. The fact of the matter is, we're conditioned to expect yield management, meaning the higher the demand, the fewer quantity, the higher the price. On the inverse, if there are too many available places to stay and little demand, the price is going to be lower. So if you use yield management effectively, you should be able to stay in the maximum revenue zone. So that's mildly interesting, but what does it mean for like the revenue management and what we're trying to do with our property? Well, by looking at your occupancy rates from the past years, you can be more informed about when the demand is high. And this allows you to make educated decisions regarding yield management, just as it did with dynamic pricing. So the most obvious place to look is the peak months, so July and August. Almost every day in those months was hitting 100% occupancy. So that can mean one of two things. Either you've set your rates at the exact optimum level with no guests being turned away, or your pricing is too low. The odds are it's the second one. So we put in some yield management rules there. If it were me, I would add a yield management rule to increase the rate by 15% wherever occupancy goes above 50%. So you can do this all within the ResNexus system. But it does mean you can also set it to decrease your rates by a certain amount if your occupancy rate falls below a certain percent. In this case, March and November would have discounted rates, which would then increase your occupancy rate. Because they dropped below the 35%, March is 34, November 34, that would drop your rate by 15%, therefore getting those bookings that you might not normally have got. The fact of the matter is that hospitality and the travel industry are a perishable product. So with that in mind, yield management works both to increase and decrease prices depending on the preparation of your guests and how soon you want to fill your occupancy. But the bottom line is, if you don't sell that unit for that night, you won't ever get a chance to sell that night again. So automated revenue management is going to be your most used tool during the shoulder season. The most basic forms of dynamic pricing that you should have set up are the ability to have weekend and seasonal rates. So you would have high rates on the weekend and adjust the rates higher or lower based on the seasons. But now let's talk about minimum nights. So this is a great pricing strategy because you earn more revenue by separating the guests that are willing to stay longer and pay more during the peak time or season. And it helps reduce the amount of maintenance for the units. But did you know that ResNexus will allow you to do smart minimum nights? So this means that your minimum night requirement automatically drops if some of the sites go unsold by a set date. So, for example, you might have a 3-night minimum all the time, but if by a certain date it's not been sold, then it can drop to a 2 or a 1 or however you set it. So we have it drop to a 1. I always keep a 2-night minimum over the weekend just because I want my weekends, I want to be able to have the Saturday off. But over the weekend of the midweeks. If it's not gone, if somebody hasn't booked a 2 night stay, then I'll drop it down to a one night, um, just just so that I get it sold. I'd rather have somebody over one night because I know what my profit margin's on it than just have no bookings at all. And then during the shoulder season, you might also want to set up sliding rates to encourage longer stays, similar to minimum nights, but also add a discount incentive. So, for example, if you book 2 nights, you get the third night free or 50% off, like we spoke about before. So, let's talk about our action plan then for what we're going to do to increase our rates over the shoulder or occupancy rates over the shoulder season. So we're going to update our social media with some seasonal messaging. So get all those nice cozy season vibes and get some reels and get some posts out there about what's going on in the local area and what's happening in these next couple of months of October and November. We're going to send out a targeted email offer. So maybe tell them about some sliding rate offers or some 4 nights for the price of three, that kind of thing. So and get those activities that are going on in the local area as well in those emails. Maybe set up some yield management, including some smart minimum nights, sliding rate rules. So set those up in ResNexus in mainly in the midweeks, just to make sure that you're getting all those extra bookings that you can get. Refresh your OTA listings to reflect the season. So again, look at your messaging that you're putting on there, look at what keywords you've got in, and look at what photos you've put up, and maybe refresh with some seasonal photos. And then track your results. So have a look at what happened last year, have a look at what's happening this year. I found personally this year, people are so much more last minute. So you want to be doing those discounts for the last minute. So again, with the yield management, you can set it so that if it hasn't gone sold by a certain time, say 7 days before, then you'll discount the rate by 10%. So see if you can have a look at what happened last year and kind of feed that into this year and see what different yield management and pricing rules that you can set up. So that is all I've got for you. Let me just, I'll just go through. Like, if you've got any questions, then please put them in the chat, and I will have a look at the chat in a second. I'm always on the end of an email, vjones@resnexus.uk, if you want to ask me any questions at all, or the end of the phone. If you want to go through with somebody to set up your yield management, have a chat about what could work for you, then definitely get in touch because we can absolutely sort that out. And just tweak some little things for you for the next couple of months, and then maybe into spring next year. So you could be looking at what's happening in January, February time. So yeah, that would be great if you want to get in touch at all. So I will have a look now if anybody has any questions in the chat. So yeah, please feel free to put them in the chat if you do have any questions. But I don't think that we have any questions. So as I say, if you do, then please just feel free to get in touch with me. And if not, then I will really hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you next month on our next ResNexus webinar. Thank you very much.